Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am here with ReGina Chavez from the Hearing and Speech Center of Northern California, and we are so excited to hear about you and your experience working as a toddler educator, toddler teacher at that site. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So kind of first off, why don't you just start talking a little bit about sort of what you do at the Hearing and Speech Center and sort of what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. I run an infant toddler social communication program, and most of my clients come from GGRC, which is the Golden Gate Regional Center here in San Francisco, California. I I try and have it look like a typical preschool or a typical, like toddler environment. So we do free play for the first hour and 15 minutes of class. And then after free play, we have like a group time. And then we wash hands together as a group. And then we also have a snack. And then after we have our snack, we go outside. And it's kind of a mix of philosophies that I found has worked really well. So a lot of the activities are Montessori inspired in that, like when we're doing that activity, that's the activity we do. And when we're done, we put it away. So that's like their work. Um, and it helps keep the environment really orderly, which helps kiddos who have a lot of sensory stuff going on. And um, and the snack is kind of rye inspired in that we take turns, we're like eating as a group. And it's also kind of our focused speech time. So they work on their carrier phrases that I want, and then they make a choice. We're working on that indicative point. So every part of the day is kind of very intentional in trying to get these kiddos to meet their communication goals and their IFSPs.
Awesome. Thanks for like providing a bit of an overview for that. So as you sort of mentioned, or just even in the name, the Hearing and Speech Center, it sounds like there's lots of professionals or lots of adults who are also kind of there with you, sort of throughout the week. Can you talk a little bit about that collaborative spirit or like what that looks like?
Sure. So upstairs, it's a two-story building. Upstairs, we have audiology on one side and speech on the other side. And so clients can come in and get their hearing checked. And a lot of times it's just ruling out that there is a hearing component to the speech issues. And then we also do speech therapy, and you can access speech therapy through Golden Gate Regional Center or through your private insurance if it happens to be one that we take. The thing that I like about our center is that it really is available to low-income families because we take the San Francisco Health Plan, which is the plan that a lot of low-income families have. So they have insurance for their kiddos. And yeah, so that's the upstairs component. And then downstairs we have just a community preschool and then my program. And so if kiddos have met their goals and they're just like looking to go to like a small preschool that's available, or a lot of times what happens is after the kiddos IEP meeting, which I attend if the family wants me to, they get a placement at SFUSD.
Okay, so it sounds like at that transition stage then from your program, then you're there potentially for that transition IEP to help kind of guide that process and be like
Right.
another almost advocate for the family in a way, or at least like another professional who's worked with the kiddo and the family.
Mhm. Right. And I partner with SFUSD. So they come and they observe my program and do their observations and assessments, because we have a really nice like observation window that they can come in, and then they can see the kiddo in a different environment. Because a lot of times, like in the program that I run specifically, they can see all these skills that the kiddo has that they've been working on through the routine and the embedded instruction that they can't see when they're like at a regular site. And so it's like, this is what they're capable of, I promise. And because, you know, with toddlers, especially, that relationship is so important for them complying.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like you take them kind of like a fish out of water, like they're not going to be doing the same things in other types of environments and different materials and
Exactly.
different people. Like you really want to get them in their like environment that they're comfortable in.
And it's really nice too, because for the IEP, they get to see the home environment, they get to see the preschool environment, and then they get to see them for their assessment. And so they have this really nice rounded picture of the kiddo.
That's great. We talk a lot about that in class of having, not only like, multiple days, but multiple sort of environments where they're observing
Mhm.
the child and the
Right.
family.
And a lot of times, the family will be like, they talk so much at home. And I'm like, but we have to have it across environments. We need them to be able to, like work outside of the home.
Exactly, right? Because that's like
Eh,
they're spending some of their time. So your program, as you kind of had mentioned earlier, offline, is like 3-4 hours, usually in the mornings for right now.
mhm.
Is that right?
Right. And we're looking to expand to an afternoon program and then go into the homes as well, because there are some kiddos who just aren't ready for a group environment. It's too overstimulating for, uh, and that's the nice thing also about the program, is that it doesn't matter what your disability is or what's going on. If you have a communication delay for any reason, it could be because you have spina bifida, it could be because you have Down syndrome, it could be because you're learning 5 languages. If you have a communication delay, that's all you need to qualify for the
That's
program.
great. Yeah, so it sounds like you have a bunch of diverse kiddos then who are coming to your program.
Right, we do, which is really nice. And with such a small group, it's hard to get a lot of diversity,
Mhm.
but just the way the cookie crumbles, we get to see like a lot of diverse kiddos.
That's great. That's really good to hear that there's this great site and service in San Francisco. Um, so then, yeah, so like you had mentioned earlier, you are contracted with the Golden Gate Regional Center. So, students or toddlers, infants are getting services through them or through private insurance, right? To be able to go to your site.
So if you want to access audiology or speech, you can go through your private insurance. For any early intervention or speech classes, those either have to go through GGRC, who we have a contract with, or you have to private pay.
Okay.
Um, and in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of families are able to private pay, no problem. But there's also a large percentage of people who can't. And we used to fundraise for that, so we could provide scholarships. But right now we don't have a development director. And so, there's no scholarships in place for kiddos. Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully in the future. But I just
Right. We can
appreciate,
reinstate that. That would be my
yeah,
hope.
any students who want to take on that task.
Right.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just glad you kind of shared a bit about that because I know that just accessing services and coordinating services and insurance and all that can be a big challenge of things that kind of happen behind the scene. Like that's not even the actual intervention part. This is like things that families are working and dealing with like outside.
Right.
That can be
And
such
one
a
of the
caregiver.
things that I've learned doing this work is that um, you can access. So, a lot of families, one of the barriers is that they can't get out of work to come to class. But through the Family Medical Leave Act, you can have like one of our speech therapists or audiologists sign off so that you get that time off of work without being penalized. Like you cannot lose your job,
Yeah.
which is really helpful for some families.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you're mentioning that for sure. Um, that's really important. So yeah, so I guess one question I kind of meant to ask you earlier offline, but for your program, are the families coming in with the kids? Are they dropping off? Are they like hanging around for the first period of time? Or what does that look like in terms of the caregiver involvement?
That's a
Sorry
very
to
good
ask. I
question.
can see a
No, no,
smirk.
no. It's a very good question. Like you said, accessing services is the number one priority. So if families need to come, let me back up for a second. So um, it's a hybrid program in that, yes, you do come with a caregiver until you can access the classroom more independently. Because like I said, learning that new model of, like some kiddos, this is their first time ever, like in a group with other kiddos, their first time using materials that aren't from their home. And so it takes a little getting used to, like, oh, I can't take the dramatic play toys like over to the water table. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's
There's
like,
some
oh
like,
yeah. It's like that stays in the kitchen, so kind of working on those executive functioning skills in that beginning categorization. It's like kitchen toys stay in the kitchen. I do have like some materials they can move around. Like I have like these weighted jugs that they can like carry around the room if they need to like travel, because that is a need that toddlers have. So it's kind of like balancing their developmental needs, but also working on those executive functioning skills.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like the paintbrushes stay with the paints. And for anyone who's worked with infants or toddlers, like trying to explain that their paintbrush can't go with them,
Yeah.
is really, can be like really just like world altering. So a lot of times it's really helpful for the family, for their loved one to be there to help them regulate. And then once we have that regulation in place, where it's not, your whole world doesn't collapse. You have to put the orange back, or and they get used to it, they get into the swing of it. And once they're comfortable and can do those small tasks independently, like some kiddos, I can't wash their hands when they first come in. They're like, sorry lady, you don't get to touch me. I'm like, respect.
Yeah.
And so like so I'll trade with the parent, and the parent can go wash the kiddo's hand. And just really kind of taking each kiddo where they're at. There's some kids who are like, bye mom, the first day.
I'm ready.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
see ya. And there's some kiddos like it takes a couple months. And so we just kind of have the flexibility for that. And I also kind of, when we do the tour, I have them bring the kiddo in, and I tell them the tour is just going to last as long as your kiddo can tolerate. And then it gives me a quick little observation and little data collection. So it's like, okay, like free play was hard, but they really thrived at circle time, and so then I can kind of alter my environment or my toys to like support that kiddo in being more successful.
Mhm. That's really helpful, to kind of walking through a little bit what that transition looks like. Because, kids are transitioning from a home environment or from another type of program environment to new people, to new kids, right? New materials. And so
Right.
they've never had
And a lot
structure
of
really,
times,
right? They've just been at home with their family.
mhm.
They kind of
And
make
a
this.
lot of times, especially now, kiddos only have access to things that are like really safe and like unbreakable and plastic. And so like in our play kitchen, like we have real dishes and like materials that can be like a little more fragile to help teach that, it's like, oh yeah, we can't bang the plate on the counter, it will break. Whereas they've only had experiences banging a plate on a counter and it's never broken.
Mhm.
It's like, if you need to bang, you can bang on the tambourine, you can bang on the bumps, like those are the choices.
Yeah, there's some like replacement things that you can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, because, banging in and of itself isn't a bad thing, but, a ceramic plate on a wooden table, it's not going to go well.
No, it's not. Not at all. Oh, that's good to know, just a little bit more about different programs. I always love having these conversations because you kind of hear what different sites are doing and, philosophies. And as you mentioned, you're bringing in a lot of different kind of theories and, teaching intervention philosophies into your program, which, there's never always one way to do it. And so I think that
There
individualizing it.
truly isn't, like a lot of people have like more of like a regio, like art-based intervention style. Mine just happens to be Ryan Montessori and with a little Jan Epstein sprinkled in.
I love that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so for all the students who are like kind of writing down some ideas and things to look up, if you're not as familiar with some of the theories or philosophies.
Mhm.
So yeah, can you kind of switching gears a little bit, can you share a bit about the home visiting that you do for kids and families?
Sure. So sometimes after the tour, a kiddo is like just super dysregulated and and like even just coming in the gate, like just literally coming in the gate screaming.
Yeah. You're like, oh, welcome. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And it took them like a while. I'm like, all right, this kiddo is going to need a little more support than the kiddo who's like, bye, mom. You know? So the kiddo who needs a little extra support, I usually will do a home visit. And what that looks like is that the family and I find a time that's amenable, typically like after a nap time and or like after a lunchtime, you know, like it could be on a weekday or the weekend. It's really, I kind of the family's inviting me into their home. So I try and make it as easy for them as possible to schedule that with me. And I'm an hourly employee. So it totally like works out. I just like clock in and clock out for that situation. And so I go into the home and sometimes like the kiddo is like not pumped to see me at their house. Sometimes they're so excited. They're just like, oh my gosh, you're here. And other times they're like, ah. So you never know how the kiddo is going to react. And that's fine. I usually will just like the parents will be like, this is so embarrassing. And
like, no, this is just their personality.
This
This
is fine. And I had this really wonderful infant toddler mentor teacher named Bonnie Aldridge. And she did this one parent meeting where she described each child like as kind of a Winnie the Pooh character. It's like you have your Tiggers and you have your Piglets and you have your Eeyores and you have your Poohs. Like every kiddo has a different temperament. And regardless of temperament, all kiddos deserve an education. And so how are we going to make it accessible to them? And so with your Eeyores and your Piglets, it's really helpful to go into the home. And even if you're just having a conversation with the parents of, you know, like, tell me about so-and-so, you know, like, what are some of his favorite things to do? Like, what makes you smile? Like, what does he call you? You know, like just those simple conversations. A lot of times families will like have a family pet and, you know, you can, and it's nice when you go into the home because you have this little window into the kiddo's life, and then you can bring that window into the classroom. And so like when you're like in the kitchen, you're like, oh, I remember your dog Rufus. Should we give him an apple? You know, and then one of the things that we also do in my room is we have like a little family board. And so all the kiddos, like important people or pets will be like on that board and we can like pretend to feed the dog, like, you know, and just fun little things like that. And so we're bringing their family life into their play and making it more relatable. And it's really helpful for kiddos with autism because they need a lot of scaffolding for their play to become functional. You know, they might want to go into the kitchen and like line up all the forks. And it's like, all right, now that that's done, like, let's like twirl the spaghetti with our fork, or, you know, kind of like breaking them out of that rigidity and creating a little more flexibility in their play.
That's really important. And I love how you're using the home to talk a bit about their routines, talk about, you know, what are you doing at home, like on a daily basis, and getting to know other people that are really important in their lives, because that just is a conversation starter, you know, in itself. Yeah.
And I also like, I have a little dog. And so if the family's amenable, like I'll bring my little dog, and that can be like a huge conversation starter too. I have one kiddo who like really had a hard time over like a couple of months, you know, like he would yell, no way, no way, no way, like all the way down the hall coming into class. And the one home visit where I brought the dog, like it just like opened him up like as a person, and it wasn't anymore like no ways coming down the hall. Like it was more like, all right, I'll tolerate this.
When are you bringing your dog again, please?
Right. When are you going to come to my house, and when are you bringing the dog?
Oh, that's good. I love that. Yeah, dogs are the best, aren't they? And I think like the furry friends, you know, they're there for everything, you know, with the kids and families. And so bring that in, having the pictures of them as well is a great strategy.
And what's really great about toddlers is they're very curious. And so, and like I said, they're learning that beginning categorization. And so sometimes like they'll hand another friend their family board, like, this is your family. And that's really special. And sometimes like a friend will get to know like another friend's pet, like through the family board and the play. And so it's like, oh, are you guys both gonna feed Rufus? Like those kinds of collaborative play experiences, which are so hard. It's like really hard for infants, toddlers to play collaboratively. They are so egocentric. And so like having to be in a group and, learning how to be around one another is just really authentic and really sweet.
Yeah, it most definitely is. I love the young ones. This is such a fun age.
Right. It is. It's like a truly disgusting age.
Yeah.
Like if you are afraid of germs, like this is not the career for you, because you will be like, someone will sneeze right in your mouth, like while you're singing. And yeah, they'll use you as a human napkin.
Or stinky. Yeah.
Yeah. Like don't wear clothes you care about to work.
No, not at
If you're
all.
going to be in the field with toddlers, like it's just not a great idea.
Yeah. I think the great thing about toddlers or young kids in general, but especially toddlers, the first like year, give or take, don't plan on being like healthy at all, but it's going to like strengthen your immune system to such a great level that hopefully you can like protect yourself in the future. So despite the getting sneezed on and all that.
Right. Yeah. So I'm definitely a very healthy person.
Yeah. Yeah. A long time in the field. Wonderful. Well, this was such a great conversation. Kind of sort of wrapping it up. Is there anything else? I know this is a little bit of a shorter conversation, but is there anything else that you can think of that you want to share with students who are going to work with young kids with disabilities and their families?
I mean, you guys have already probably heard this, but relationships, like creating those relationships is what's going to get you able to meet their IFSP goals. And if you don't have that relationship, it's probably not going to go that great. And so just kind of working, like, not like you're an actor and this is your craft, but it kind of is. And so just like really working on, how to connect with children, how to connect with families. And from there, like once you have the buy-in, it's really beautiful. And one of the great joys of my life is watching kiddos like reach and exceed their goals. And so if that is something you like, this is definitely the career for you.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think relationships are the foundation, and it takes a while to establish relationships, right? So some people it's going to be a little bit easier, sometimes a little bit harder, just sometimes how personalities match or past experiences, all those things play a role into it. So relationships are sort of vital and foundational to any of the work that we do in this field.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.